Jake Martinez wiped his sweaty palms on his uniform for the third time in 10 minutes. He stood in the main corridor of the human starship Horizon's Edge, watching through the massive viewport as Meridian Prime space station grew larger ahead. Of them, the neutral station looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in the darkness of space, its lights twinkling like stars. Captain Lisa Morgan walked past him, her boots clicking on the metal floor. She noticed Jake's nervous expression and stopped. "First time meeting aliens, Martinez?" she asked with a small smile. Jake nodded. "Yes, Captain. I've read all the reports about the Catherians, but seeing them in person will be different." He had spent weeks studying everything humanity knew about their new alien neighbors. The Catherians looked like insects to human eyes, with long, thin limbs and shiny dark shells covering their bodies. But they were highly intelligent and had technology that was far ahead of anything humans had built. "Just remember your training," Captain Morgan said. "Be respectful, follow protocol, and don't make any sudden movements. The Catherians are just as nervous about meeting us as we are about meeting them." Ambassador Ryan Clark's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All diplomatic personnel report to Docking Bay 3. We arrive at Meridian Prime in 15 minutes." Jake straightened his blue diplomatic uniform and checked his translation device one more time. The small earpiece would help him understand the Catherian language, though he had been warned that it sometimes struggled with their more complex phrases. He grabbed his datapad containing his notes about Catherian customs and hurried toward the docking bay. The docking bay was busy with activity. Human crew members secured equipment while the diplomatic team gathered near the airlock. Dr. Amy Foster, the team's expert on alien cultures, was reviewing last-minute details with Ambassador Clark. Jake joined the group of junior diplomats, standing nearby. "Remember," Dr. Foster was saying, "the Catherians greet each other by crossing their arms over their chest and bowing slightly. Do not offer to shake hands or make direct physical contact without permission. Their princess is considered sacred by their people, so be extra careful around her." The ship shook gently as it connected to the space station. Red lights flashed, and then the airlock doors opened with a soft hiss. Ambassador Clark led the group through a long tunnel that connected their ship to Meridian Prime. Jake felt his heart beating faster as they walked toward their first meeting with an alien species. The meeting room on Meridian Prime was large and circular, with a high ceiling and soft lighting. One half of the room had chairs designed for humans, while the other half had different furniture that looked like it was made for the Catherian body shape. The air smelled different here, with a slight metallic scent that reminded Jake of rain. They waited for several minutes before the other doors opened. The Catherian delegation entered the room, and Jake got his first look at real aliens. They moved with surprising grace despite their insect-like appearance. Their dark shells reflected the room's lights, and their large compound eyes seemed to look in all directions at once. Each Catherian was about 7 feet tall and very thin. Princess Zara entered last, and Jake immediately understood why she was considered special. While the other Catherians wore simple dark clothing, she wore flowing robes that changed color as she moved. Her shell was lighter than the others, with patterns that looked like silver lines running through dark metal. Most striking were her eyes, which seemed more focused and intelligent than the others. Ambassador Clark stepped forward and crossed his arms over his chest, bowing as Dr. Foster had instructed. "Your Highness," he said, "we are honored to meet you and your people. I am Ambassador Ryan Clark, representing humanity." Princess Zara's translator device made small clicking sounds before her voice came through in perfect English. "Ambassador Clark, we welcome this chance to learn about your species. I am Princess Zara of House Velthera." The formal introductions continued as each human diplomat was presented to the princess. When Jake's turn came, he stepped forward and started to cross his arms as he had been taught. But something went wrong. As he bowed, he stumbled slightly, and his right hand moved toward Princess Zara Dot without thinking. Jake extended his hand in the traditional human handshake gesture. The room went completely silent. Dr. Foster's face went pale, and Ambassador Clark looked like he might faint. The Catherian guards moved closer to their princess, their posture showing they were ready to defend her. But Princess Zara did something unexpected. Instead of backing away or showing offense, she stared at Jake's extended hand with what looked like curiosity. She tilted her head to one side, a movement that reminded Jake of a bird studying something interesting. "What is the meaning of this gesture?" she asked, her translated voice carrying a tone of genuine interest rather than anger. Jake's mouth felt dry, but he managed to speak. "Your Highness, I apologize for my mistake. This is how humans greet each other. We shake hands to show friendship and respect. I meant no offense." Princess Zara looked at his hand for a long moment, then slowly extended one of her own thin limbs. Her hand was longer than a human hand, with 4 fingers instead of 5, and her skin felt cool and smooth. Jake gently took her hand and moved it up and down once, then released it. "Interesting," Princess Zara said. "This physical contact is meant to show trust between strangers?" "Yes, Your Highness," Jake replied. "It shows that neither person is carrying a weapon, and that we come in peace." The princess made a sound that Jake's translator couldn't interpret, but her body language seemed relaxed rather than hostile. The other Catherians looked uncomfortable, but they followed their princess's lead and remained calm. "I would like to learn more about human customs," Princess Zara announced, surprising everyone in the room. "Perhaps this young diplomat could explain other aspects of your culture during our stay here." Ambassador Clark quickly recovered from his shock. "Of course, Your Highness. Diplomat Martinez would be honored to assist you in any way possible." As the formal ceremony continued, Jake noticed that Princess Zara kept looking in his direction. When she thought no one was watching, she would touch the hand that had shaken his, as if trying to understand what the gesture had meant. For the first time since arriving at Meridian Prime, Jake felt like this meeting between 2 very different species might actually succeed. 3 weeks had passed since the first meeting between humans and Catherians on Meridian Prime. Jake Martinez found himself spending several hours each day with Princess Zara, teaching her about human culture and society. What had started as a diplomatic duty had become the most interesting part of his assignment. They usually met in a quiet section of the space station called the Cultural Exchange Center. The room had large windows that showed the stars outside and comfortable furniture from both human and Catherian designs. Princess Zara would arrive each day with questions written on a datapad, her curiosity about humanity seeming to grow stronger with each meeting. "Tell me about human music," Princess Zara said during one of their sessions. She sat in her specially designed chair, her large eyes focused intently on Jake. Jake pulled out a small device and played a simple song with guitar and vocals. The princess listened without moving, her head tilted in that bird-like way he had noticed during their first meeting. When the song ended, she was quiet for a long moment. "The sounds create patterns that affect your emotions," she said finally. "This is intentional?" "Yes," Jake replied. "Music can make us feel happy, sad, excited, or calm. Different types of music create different feelings." Princess Zara made the clicking sound that Jake had learned meant she was thinking deeply about something. "Catherians do not have music. We have communication patterns that share information, but nothing designed only to create emotional responses." Jake played several more songs, watching as the princess reacted to each one. When he played a sad song about lost love, she seemed to become very still. When he switched to an upbeat dance song, her posture changed and she moved slightly in rhythm with the beat. Your species values these emotional experiences, she observed. In Cytherian society, emotions are considered distractions from logical thinking. Emotions can be distracting, Jake agreed, but they also help us make decisions and connect with other people. They make life more meaningful. During another session, Jake showed Princess Zara examples of human art and literature. She studied paintings on his tablet, asking detailed questions about why humans created images that didn't serve any practical purpose. When he read her a short poem about spring flowers, she asked him to repeat it 3 times. The words create pictures in the mind, she said. Even though the flowers described do not exist in this room, I can imagine them clearly. That's exactly right, Jake said, pleased that she understood. Humans use imagination to experience things that aren't physically present. Princess Zara was quiet for a moment, then spoke more softly than usual. Jake, may I ask you a personal question? Of course, Your Highness. Please, when we are alone, call me Zara. I have been wondering about human families. You choose your own partners for mating and bonding? Jake felt his cheeks grow warm at the personal nature of the question, but he answered honestly. Yes, we call it marriage when 2 people choose to spend their lives together. Usually it happens because they love each other. Love, Zara repeated the word carefully. Your translator gives me the meaning, but I do not think I truly understand this concept. Jake struggled to explain something that felt so natural to him. Love is when you care about someone else's happiness more than your own. It's wanting to protect them and spend time with them. It makes you feel complete when they're near you. Zara was very still as she processed this information. In my society, I am betrothed to a male of high rank whom I have never met. Our bonding was arranged when I was very young to strengthen political alliances between our families. How do you feel about that? Jake asked, then immediately worried he had been too forward. Feel? Zara made that clicking sound again. I had not considered that my feelings about the arrangement mattered. It is simply my duty. As the days continued, Jake began to notice changes in Princess Zara. She started asking more personal questions about his own life and experiences. She wanted to know about his childhood, his dreams for the future, and what made him happy or sad. In return, she began sharing details about Cytherian society that went beyond the formal information in the diplomatic briefings. Our lives are planned from birth, she explained during one conversation. We are tested as children to determine our abilities, then trained for specific roles in society. I was identified as having strong mental capabilities, so I was prepared for leadership and diplomatic functions. Did you ever want to do something different? Jake asked. Zara paused, and Jake could tell this was not a question she had ever been asked before. I never considered that wanting something different was possible. But since meeting your people, I find myself wondering about choices. Jake felt a strange sensation in his chest when she said this. He was beginning to realize that his feelings toward Princess Zara were becoming more than professional interest. She was intelligent, curious, and surprisingly gentle despite her alien appearance. When she listened to him explain human concepts, her complete attention made him feel important and valued. One evening, they were sitting in the observation deck, watching stars through the massive windows. Jake had been explaining the human concept of friendship when Princess Zara suddenly stood up and walked to the window. Jake, she said without turning around, I must tell you something that troubles me. He joined her at the window, standing close enough to see his reflection in her large compound eyes. What's wrong, Zara? The Cytherian High Council is not pleased with the time I spend learning about human culture. They believe it is making me unsuitable for my planned bonding ceremony. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. When is your ceremony supposed to happen? Soon after we return to Cytherian space. My betrothed is traveling to meet us when these negotiations end." They stood in silence for several minutes, both looking out at the stars. Jake wanted to tell her how he felt, but he knew it would only make things worse for both of them. A human and a Cytherian could never have the kind of relationship he was starting to dream about. "Zara," he said finally, "whatever happens, I want you to know that these weeks have been the best part of my life. Teaching you about humanity has taught me things about myself I never knew." Princess Zara turned to look at him, and for a moment Jake thought he saw something in her alien features that reminded him of sadness. "You have given me a gift I did not know existed," she said. "You have shown me that there are different ways to live, different ways to think about what life should be." The next day, Dr. Amy Foster approached Jake with a concerned expression. "Jake, I need to warn you about something. The Cytherian delegation is growing suspicious of how much time you spend with Princess Zara. Ambassador Clark has received complaints that you're having too much influence on her." "What kind of complaints?" Jake asked. "They think she's becoming too interested in human ways of thinking. Apparently, she's been asking questions about individual choice and emotional freedom that make her advisors uncomfortable." Jake felt proud and worried at the same time. He was glad that Zara was learning to think for herself, but he didn't want to cause problems for her with her own people. "There's something else," Dr. Foster continued. "Word is that the formal alliance negotiations aren't going well. If they fail, both delegations will be recalled to their home worlds within the next few weeks." That night, Jake couldn't sleep. The thought of never seeing Princess Zara again made him feel empty inside. He had fallen in love with an alien princess, and there was nothing he could do about it. Jake Martinez woke up to the sound of alarms echoing through Meridian Prime Space Station. Emergency lights flashed in the corridors as he quickly dressed and ran toward the main diplomatic area. Something important was happening, and from the serious faces of the crew members he passed, it wasn't good news. He found Ambassador Clark in the communication center, speaking rapidly with Captain Morgan. When they saw Jake approaching, both of them looked grim. "What's happening?" Jake asked. "The Cytherian High Council has arrived unexpectedly," Ambassador Clark replied. "3 massive ships dropped out of hyperspace an hour ago. They're demanding immediate audience with Princess Zara and want to review all our negotiation progress." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Is Princess Zara in trouble because of our cultural exchange sessions?" Captain Morgan nodded grimly. "It looks that way. We've intercepted some of their communications. The High Council is not happy about her interest in human customs." Through the window of the communication center, Jake could see the 3 Cytherian ships. They were enormous vessels that looked like dark crystals floating in space, each one larger than any human ship he had ever seen. Their presence made Meridian Prime look tiny in comparison. "What does this mean for the alliance negotiations?" Jake asked. "Nothing good," Ambassador Clark said. "The High Council apparently thinks Princess Zara has been compromised by human influence. They want her to complete the negotiations quickly and return home immediately for her bonding ceremony." Jake spent the rest of the morning trying to focus on his regular diplomatic duties, but his mind kept wandering to Princess Zara. He hadn't seen her since the High Council's arrival, and he was worried about what they might be saying to her. That afternoon, he was walking past one of the Cytherian meeting rooms when he heard raised voices inside. The door was slightly open, and through the gap, he could see Princess Zara surrounded by several larger Cytherians wearing elaborate ceremonial robes. Their voices were too rapid and complex for his translator to follow clearly, but their body language showed anger and disapproval. Princess Zara's voice cut through the others, speaking in what sounded like firm, measured tones. Whatever she was saying, it was clearly not what the High Council wanted to hear. One of the council members made a sharp gesture, and Jake's translator caught fragments of words about primitive emotional thinking and contamination by inferior species. Jake quickly moved away from the door, not wanting to be caught eavesdropping, but the fragments he had heard made him angry. How dare they call humans inferior? And how could they be upset with Princess Zara for simply learning about different ways of life? Later that evening, Jake was surprised to receive a message requesting his presence at a formal dinner with both delegations. He had expected to be excluded from such important events, especially given the High Council's apparent displeasure with his influence on Princess Zara. The dinner was held in Meridian Prime's largest meeting hall. Long tables were arranged in a U-shape, with humans on one side and Catherians on the other. The atmosphere was tense, with polite conversation that felt forced and uncomfortable. Jake was seated at the far end of the human table, as befitted his junior status. Princess Zara sat at the center of the Catherian side, flanked by High Council members who watched her every movement with obvious suspicion. During the meal, Ambassador Clark attempted to discuss trade agreements and technology sharing, but the High Council members seemed more interested in questioning the princess about her activities during the past month. Their translator devices carried their words in emotionless tones, but Jake could tell from their body language that they were not pleased with her answers. Then disaster struck. One of the High Council members asked Princess Zara to demonstrate proper Catherian diplomatic protocol by greeting the human delegation according to traditional customs. This seemed like a simple request, but Jake realized it was actually a test. Princess Zara stood and approached the human table. She was supposed to cross her arms over her chest and bow formally to Ambassador Clark, but as she moved, her eyes met Jake's, and something changed in her expression. Instead of following traditional Catherian protocol, Princess Zara extended her hand toward Jake in the human handshake gesture he had taught her weeks ago. The room went completely silent. "I greet you in the manner of your people," she said clearly, "because I have learned that understanding between species requires respect for different customs." Jake knew he should refuse the gesture and redirect her toward proper protocol, but seeing the defiant look in her compound eyes, he stood and took her hand. "Thank you, Your Highness. Your willingness to learn our ways shows the wisdom and openness that makes you a great leader." The explosion of angry clicking from the Catherian side of the room was immediate. Several High Council members stood up so quickly that their chairs fell over. Their translator devices struggled to keep up with the rapid flow of outraged Catherian speech. Ambassador Clark tried to smooth things over by explaining that cultural exchange was a normal part of diplomatic relations, but the damage was done. The High Council clearly viewed Princess Zara's behavior as a serious breach of proper conduct. One of the council members, who Jake learned was called High Counselor Vex, spoke directly to Ambassador Clark. "This human has corrupted our princess with primitive emotional responses. He is no longer welcome in any diplomatic proceedings." Princess Zara stepped forward, her voice carrying a tone Jake had never heard from her before. "Counselor Vex, I will not allow you to insult my friend or dismiss the valuable knowledge I have gained from studying human culture." The word friend seemed to make the High Council even angrier. In Catherian society, apparently, personal relationships were not supposed to influence professional duties. "You will return to your quarters immediately," High Counselor Vex commanded. "Tomorrow we depart for home, where you will fulfill your obligations to your betrothed and forget these dangerous ideas about emotional attachments." Princess Zara looked directly at Jake for a long moment, and he saw something in her eyes that might have been regret or sadness. Then she turned and left the room, followed by her guards. The dinner ended abruptly after that. Ambassador Clark spent an hour trying to salvage the situation, but the High Council was firm in their position. The alliance negotiations were suspended, and both delegations would return to their home territories within 3 days. As Jake walked back to his quarters that night, he felt like his world was falling apart. Not only had he potentially ruined humanity's chance at an alliance with an advanced alien species, but he was about to lose the most amazing person he had ever met. Dr. Foster caught up with him in the corridor. "Jake, I'm sorry about what happened tonight, but you should know that Princess Zara stood up for you even after you left. She told the High Council that humans have valuable qualities that Catherians could learn from." "What did they say to that?" Jake asked. "They told her that her judgment has been compromised by excessive exposure to human emotional thinking. They've confined her to quarters until departure." Jake stared out the window at the Catherian ships, feeling helpless. Somewhere in one of those vessels, Princess Zara was probably being lectured about the dangers of caring too much about individual feelings and personal choices. But as he watched, Jake noticed something strange. The lights on one of the Catherian ships were flashing in a pattern that seemed almost like Morse code. It was probably just normal ship communications, but something about the rhythm reminded him of the way Princess Zara would tap her fingers when she was thinking deeply about human concepts. Could she be trying to send him a message? Or was he just hoping for something that wasn't really there? Either way, Jake knew he couldn't just let her disappear from his life without at least trying to say goodbye, even if it meant risking his career and possibly making things worse for both of them. Jake Martinez couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about Princess Zara confined to her quarters on one of those massive Catherian ships, probably being prepared for a life she didn't want. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her extending her hand to him at dinner, defying her own people to show respect for human customs. At 3 a.m, his door chimed softly. Jake opened it to find Dr. Amy Foster standing in the corridor, holding a datapad and looking excited despite the late hour. "Jake, I need to show you something important," she said, slipping into his room. "I've been analyzing the biological data we collected from our meetings with the Catherians, and I've discovered something incredible." She activated her datapad and showed him complex charts and graphs. "Look at these brain scans from Princess Zara compared to the other Catherians. See these areas highlighted in blue? Those are emotional processing centers." Jake studied the images, not understanding what he was seeing. "What does this mean?" "It means that Catherian brains are naturally capable of the same emotional range as humans," Dr. Foster explained. "But look at the scans from the High Council members. Those same brain areas are almost completely inactive." She switched to another screen, showing genetic analysis. "I think the Catherians have been artificially suppressing their own emotional capabilities for generations, probably through genetic modification and social conditioning." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying they've deliberately made themselves less emotional?" "Exactly. And Princess Zara is different. Her emotional centers are not just active, they're becoming more active over time. Being around humans is awakening parts of her brain that have been dormant." Dr. Foster showed him more data comparing Princess Zara's brain activity from their first meeting to their most recent sessions. The difference was dramatic. "Jake, your cultural exchange sessions haven't been corrupting her. They've been helping her become what her species naturally should be." "We have to tell someone about this," Jake said. "I've already sent the data to Ambassador Clark, but there's something else. I think Princess Zara knows about this already. Some of the questions she's been asking, you suggest she's been researching her own people's history." Before Jake could respond, an emergency alarm started sounding throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and Captain Morgan's voice came over the communication system. "All personnel to emergency stations. We have detected unauthorized activity near the Catherian vessels." Jake and Dr. Foster ran to the nearest observation deck, where they found dozens of people watching something happening outside. One of the Catherian ships was moving away from the others, heading toward a different section of Meridian Prime. "That's Princess Zara's ship," Dr. Foster said. Recognizing the specific crystal patterns on its hull, Captain Morgan arrived at the observation deck, speaking rapidly into her communication device. "A princess's ship requested emergency docking privileges. She claims to have critical information about a security threat." Jake's heart started beating faster. Was Princess Zara trying to escape from her people, or was something else happening? 20 minutes later, Jake found himself in the station's main conference room, along with Ambassador Clark, Captain Morgan, and Dr. Foster. The doors opened and Princess Zara entered, but she looked different from before. Her movements were more fluid and confident, and her compound eyes seemed to glow with an inner light that Jake had never seen. "Your Highness," Ambassador Clark began, "we weren't expecting you to leave your ship." "Ambassador Clark, I have information that affects both our species," Princess Zara said. Her voice carried a new strength and clarity. "But first, I must speak with Jake privately. What I have to share concerns him directly." Ambassador Clark looked confused, but nodded toward a smaller meeting room nearby. Jake followed Princess Zara inside, his mind racing with questions. As soon as the door closed, Princess Zara turned to face him. "Jake, I need you to know that everything the High Council told you about me being corrupted by human influence is wrong." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. Princess Zara walked to the room's computer terminal and activated it with a gesture Jake had never seen before. The screen filled with data that looked similar to what Dr. Foster had shown him, but far more detailed. "I have been using my natural quantum biological abilities to access information networks throughout this station and the Catherian ships," she said. "My people do not know I possess these capabilities because they were supposed to be suppressed along with my emotional development." Jake stared at the data flowing across the screen. "You can interface directly with computer systems?" "It is a natural ability that all Catherians once possessed before the Great Suppression 300 years ago. My people deliberately altered themselves to remove emotional responses and quantum abilities because they believed these traits made them weak and unpredictable." Princess Zara brought up historical records that Jake couldn't read, but the images showed Catherians who looked different from the ones he had met. These ancient Catherians had brighter coloring and more expressive faces. "The High Council has hidden our true history," Princess Zara continued. "We were once a species much like humans, capable of art, music, love, and individual choice. The leaders decided that pure logic and predetermined social roles would make us stronger." "But you're different," Jake said. "You still have those abilities." Princess Zara turned away from the computer and looked directly at him. "My abilities began returning the moment I met you, Jake. Your genuine kindness and openness triggered something in my brain that had been dormant my entire life." Jake felt his breath catch in his throat. "Zara, I need to tell you something. I've been falling in love with you, even though I know it's impossible." Instead of surprise or confusion, Princess Zara's expression showed something that looked remarkably like relief. "Finally," she said softly. "Finally?" Jake asked. "I have been sensing your emotional attachment to me for weeks through my developing abilities. I was waiting for you to acknowledge what I already knew was there." Jake stepped closer to her, hardly believing what he was hearing. "You can sense emotions?" "Yours, yes. And Jake, what you call love, I have been feeling as well. It is why my people are so concerned about my behavior. They can sense the change in me, even if they don't understand what's causing it." Princess Zara activated another screen on the computer. "But there is something else you must know. The High Council is planning to do more than just take me home for a bonding ceremony. They intend to use a genetic modification process to permanently suppress the abilities that have been awakening in me. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. They want to erase who you're becoming? Yes, and there is worse news. My betrothed, Prince Keth, is the leader of a radical faction within our empire that opposes any alliance with humanity. He has been sabotaging the negotiations from the beginning. The computer screen showed communication logs between Prince Keth and various Ketherian military leaders. Even though Jake couldn't read the language, the tone seemed hostile and aggressive. He believes that contact with humans will awaken the suppressed abilities in more Ketherians, which would threaten the current power structure he plans to use our bonding ceremony as an excuse to launch a preemptive attack on human space. Jake stared at the evidence, understanding the full scope of what Princess Zara was revealing. This information could prevent a war. It could also save my people from remaining trapped in an artificial existence that denies their true nature. But Jake, sharing this information will make me a traitor to my own empire. I will never be able to return home. Jake looked into her compound eyes and saw the same mixture of fear and determination that he felt in his own heart. Princess Zara was willing to sacrifice everything she had known to prevent a war and help both their species. What do you want to do? He asked. Princess Zara reached out and took his hand in the gesture she had learned from him weeks ago. I want to choose my own path, just as you taught me humans can do. I want to help both our peoples discover what they could become together. Jake squeezed her hand gently. Then let's go save both our worlds. As they prepared to leave the small meeting room and share Princess Zara's revelations with the human delegation, Jake realized that everything in his life had been leading to this moment. The nervous young diplomat who had accidentally offered a handshake to an alien princess was gone, replaced by someone ready to fight for love and truth across the vastness of space. Jake Martinez and Princess Zara returned to the main conference room, where Ambassador Clark, Captain Morgan, and Dr. Foster were waiting anxiously. The next hour would determine not only their personal future, but the fate of two entire civilizations. Ambassador Clark, Princess Zara began, I have critical information about a threat to both our species. She activated the room's main display screen and began showing the evidence she had gathered about Prince Keth's sabotage plans. Ambassador Clark's face grew increasingly serious as he studied the data. Your Highness, are you certain about these communications? I accessed them directly from Prince Keth's personal files using my quantum biological abilities. Princess Zara replied. He has been working to prevent any alliance between our peoples because he fears that contact with humans will awaken the emotional and quantum capabilities that were suppressed in my people generations ago. Dr. Foster leaned forward, studying the genetic modification schedules that Princess Zara had uncovered. These documents show plans to permanently alter your brain structure. They want to eliminate the abilities that have been developing in you. That is correct, Princess Zara confirmed. But there is something else. The suppression process is not as permanent as my people believe. Other Ketherians could regain their natural abilities if exposed to the right conditions. Captain Morgan looked at the tactical information Princess Zara had shared. According to this data, Prince Keth has military support for an attack on human colonies. How much time do we have? He is traveling here now for our bonding ceremony, which was scheduled to take place immediately after the alliance negotiations concluded. Once that ceremony happens, he will have the authority to act on his plans. Ambassador Clark stood up and began pacing. We need to contact the Ketherian High Council immediately and share this information with them. That will not work, Princess Zara said quietly. The High Council is not involved in Prince Keth's military plans, but they will not believe evidence that comes from me. They already consider my judgment compromised by human influence. Jake had been listening carefully to everything, and suddenly he had an idea. What if we could prove that your abilities aren't a corruption, but a return to your people's natural state. Dr. Foster caught on immediately. The biological data I collected shows that Princess Zara's brain changes are positive developments, not damage from human contact. But we need more than just data, Jake continued. We need to show the High Council that other Cytherians can safely regain these abilities. Princess Zara looked thoughtful for a moment. There is a way to do this, but it would be very risky. I could use my quantum abilities to create a harmless connection with other Cytherians, allowing them to temporarily experience what I have experienced. Would that be safe? Ambassador Clark asked. For most Cytherians, yes. The abilities are still present in their brains, just dormant. But the High Council members have been more heavily modified. The process might not work on them, or it could cause them distress. Captain Morgan activated her communication device. I'm calling an emergency meeting with both delegations. If we're going to prevent a war, we need to act now. 2 hours later, both the human and Cytherian delegations had assembled in Meridian Prime's largest meeting hall. The atmosphere was tense, with the High Council members clearly displeased about being summoned to hear what they considered the ramblings of a corrupted princess. Ambassador Clark presented Dr. Foster's biological evidence first, explaining how Princess Zara's brain development represented a return to natural Cytherian capabilities, rather than damage from human influence. The High Council listened with obvious skepticism. High Counselor Vex spoke for the group. These human interpretations of our biology are irrelevant. Princess Zara will return with us for immediate correction of her condition. Counselor Vex, Princess Zara said, standing up with more confidence than Jake had ever seen from her. I request the right to demonstrate that my abilities are beneficial rather than harmful. You have no rights to request anything, High Counselor Vex replied, coldly. But another council member, who had been studying Dr. Foster's data, raised a question. What kind of demonstration do you propose, Princess? Princess Zara walked to the center of the room. I will use my quantum abilities to temporarily share my experiences with any Cytherian who volunteers. They will be able to feel what I feel and understand what I have learned, then return to their normal state afterward. The High Council members exchanged rapid communications in their own language. Finally, High Counselor Vex spoke. This is acceptable, but only if you can find volunteers from our delegation. To everyone's surprise, several of the younger Cytherians from Princess Zara's original diplomatic team stepped forward. They had been watching her changes over the past month with curiosity rather than concern about Princess Zara. Approached the first volunteer, a young Cytherian named Diplomat Rez. Are you certain you want to do this? You will experience emotions and sensations that may feel strange at first. Diplomat Rez nodded. I wish to understand what you have learned, Princess. Princess Zara placed her hands on either side of Diplomat Rez's head and closed her eyes. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then Diplomat Rez's posture began to change. His movements became more fluid, and his head turned to look around the room with what appeared to be wonder. I can feel the emotional states of everyone here, Diplomat Rez said, his voice filled with amazement. Humans are not just thinking beings. They have depth and complexity I never imagined. He looked directly at Jake. You care deeply for Princess Zara, but you also feel concern for all of our peoples. This is not weakness. It is strength. Princess Zara released the connection, and Diplomat Rez returned to his normal state, but his expression remained thoughtful, rather than distressed. How do you feel? High Counselor Vex asked. I feel like I have been living in a small room my entire life, and someone just showed me that there are many more rooms in the house. Diplomat Rez replied. 3 more Cytherians volunteered for the demonstration, and each had similar reactions. They experienced temporary emotional awareness and quantum abilities, then returned to normal with positive feelings about the experience. But the real breakthrough came when Princess Zara shared the intelligence she had gathered about Prince Keth's sabotage plans. The evidence was too detailed and specific for the High Council to dismiss. If these communications are authentic, High Counselor Vex said slowly, then Prince Keth has committed treason against the Empire. They are authentic, Princess Zara assured him. And there is more. The humans have technology and knowledge that could help our people safely regain their natural abilities without the instability that our ancestors feared. Ambassador Clark stepped forward. We propose a new kind of alliance. Not just trade and mutual defense, but a partnership to help both our species reach their full potential. The discussions that followed lasted through the night. The High Council was forced to acknowledge that their understanding of human capabilities had been incomplete, and that Princess Zara's changes represented positive development rather than corruption. But the most traumatic moment came when High Counselor Vex made an unprecedented decision. Princess Zara, the Empire cannot allow you to return if you refuse the genetic modification process. You have become too different from what we consider acceptable. Jake felt his heart sink, thinking that this meant Princess Zara would be exiled from her people forever. But Princess Zara surprised everyone with her response. Counselor Vex, I formally request assignment as permanent ambassador to humanity, with Jake Martinez as my official cultural liaison. The High Council considered this proposal for several minutes before High Counselor Vex replied. This is acceptable. You will serve as our representative to the humans, and your experiences will help us understand whether broader cultural exchange is beneficial for our empire. Jake could hardly believe what he was hearing. Not only had they prevented a war, but he and Princess Zara would be able to continue working together. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the joint human-Catherian research vessel, Unity, watching a beautiful binary star system through the massive windows. The ship was a marvel of combined technology, with human creativity enhanced by Catherian quantum biological systems. That Princess Zara approached him from behind, moving with the graceful confidence that had become natural to her. Jake, the morning. Reports show that 12 more Catherians have requested to participate in the Emotional Awakening program. Jake smiled, still amazed by how much their lives had changed, and how many humans have signed up for quantum biological enhancement training. 37 this week, Zara replied, standing beside him at the window. It seems both our species are eager to learn from each other. They had spent the past months developing safe procedures for helping Catherians regain their natural emotional and quantum abilities while teaching humans to work with quantum biological technology. The results had exceeded everyone's expectations. Jake, Princess Zara said softly, do you ever regret the path we chose? He turned to look at her, still, marveling at how her features had become even more expressive as her abilities developed. How could I regret finding out who we both really are? Princess Zara made a sound that Jake had learned was the Catherian equivalent of laughter. It was a musical clicking that reminded him of wind chimes in a gentle breeze. When I first heard, you laugh like a human, she said, I thought it was the most beautiful sound in the universe. Now that I can make similar sounds, I understand why humans value music so highly. Jake took her hand in the gesture that had started their entire relationship. Zara, I have something to ask you. In human culture, when two people want to spend their lives together, they make a formal promise to each other. Princess Zara's compound eyes seemed to sparkle with amusement. Are you asking if I want to participate in a human bonding ceremony with you, Jake Martinez? Actually, Jake said, feeling nervous despite everything they had been through together. I'm asking if you want to create our own kind of ceremony, something that honors both human and Catherian traditions. Princess Zara was quiet for a moment, and Jake could sense through their developing quantum connection that she was considering the emotional significance of his proposal. Jake, she said finally, my people have a saying that roughly translates to, two minds working as one can understand truths that neither could discover alone. I think humans and Catherians together can become something greater than either species alone. Is that a yes? Jake asked. Princess Zara smiled with her whole face, an expression she had learned from him, but made uniquely her own. That is definitely a yes. As they stood together watching the binary stars orbit each other in perfect harmony, Jake realized that their love story had become something much larger. They had helped two entire civilizations discover new possibilities for growth and connection. The nervous young diplomat who had accidentally offered a handshake to an alien princess was gone forever. In his place stood someone who had learned that the greatest adventures begin when you're brave enough to reach out to someone completely different from yourself. And Princess Zara, who had once been destined for a life of predetermined choices and suppressed emotions, had become a bridge between worlds, helping both species discover what they could accomplish when they embraced their full potential. Their story was just beginning.